Hello everybody, welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
It's Monday, no game week finito, because there's a game tonight. I keep reminding myself.
You could finish the week 17th or 10th, Suj, depending on how you perform tonight.
That's mad. I did look at the table because we dropped quite a bit with Leicester winning, Saints winning.
The
drawing in the end, sorry.
Felt like a win. It was the best bit of my weekend.
But yeah, there was quite a bit of movement down at the bottom around there yesterday. So yeah, Villa winning, obviously, as well. But yeah, like you said, we win and then we're up to the top half of the table. So it's very tight at the bottom at the moment. Yeah, all good. What's been happening? How many points?
Not a lot. I feel like you should go first because we guaranteed on Friday that you'd come into this podcast ahead.
I did.
There was a brief moment where it looked like Wilfried Zaha might get sent off on Saturday and called that into question. But Callum Wilsons' goal yesterday has meant you're on 6 more than me.
Correct.
I'm on 50. Returns for Captain Haaland, 26. Goal for Alexander Mitrovic yesterday. And Danny Warding goal paid off, actually, who's now got 4 clean sheets in the last 5 games. I didn't bother to check if he's the highest scoring goalkeeper over those last 5 game weeks, but we did scream about this.
Kepa might be up there.
We did scream about this.
Alisson had 15 last week because of his penalty.
Kepa, probably. You're quite right, yeah.
And Alisson's penalty in midweek. He scored 15, didn't he, I think?
Yes.
So, barring those anomalies for consistency, though, Ward's been all right for a few weeks.
There's only one team's kept more clean sheets than Leicester now.
All season.
Yeah. So prior to this 5-game run, they'd conceded more goals than any other team at that stage of a Premier League season in history, and yet now there's only one team's kept more clean sheets than them. It's a bonkers season, this.
Mad. Yeah, 56. Same as you, other than I had Callum Wilson's return, which you didn't, and that was it as it stands.
And Wilf.
Zaha's 1-pointer.
Would you rather have the 6 points or would you rather have Bowen and Solanke tonight?
You only need 1 return. Assuming they both get 2 appearance points, you only need an assist to outscore it. So I'd probably take the players.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'd probably take the players. But I mean, it's neither here nor there. It's a couple of points here or there. So I don't see either of them going off crazy tonight. But let's see. I mean, we've had some hideous rain in London. Did you get pissed on yesterday?
I avoided it completely.
Oh, wow. That's good.
I was very lucky.
I mean, if the weather kicks off tonight...
Which I wasn't coming back from Manchester, having avoided it the whole time in Manchester, got 150 yards from my house and it was battering it, and I waited at a bus stop for about 5 minutes and it started easing off and I thought, that's great. You know when you get that kind of monsoon, I only need to be in this for 3 seconds?
Yeah,
that's what happened to me. Yesterday, I avoided it. What an amazing skyline yesterday at White Hart Lane. It was all sorts of colours going on.
It was pretty mad indeed. I think I, like a lot of people, bought Foden at the weekend, sold Trossard, obviously. Trossard, Brighton friends, I should call them. Thank you.
Should we just talk about Trossard now?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can. It was an inevitability that Trossard was going to score after I sold him, but I don't know why it's such a kind of big deal.
It's a big deal because so many others did it as well, Suj.
Oh, and like it's like as if a player that people sell was never going to return. The likelihood of a return away at City was obviously going to be quite low anyway. The disappointment was Foden getting benched. But from yesterday to the end of the season, Foden still outscores Trossard.
I think it was the whole narrative around you held him for so long last year. You ended up holding him longer than you wanted to. Then you sold him. Then he went off in difficult fixtures. Yeah. You were right to sell him then. You were also right to sell him this week.
Exactly.
You don't look back on it and go, oh my God, I should have kept Trossard. No, listen, it's the right
he's gone.
It was the right decision in April and it was the right decision this week. It's just funny the way it works out.
Yeah, it's this inevitability of life, right?
He'd scored at the Emirates. He scored at White Hart Lane. He scored a hat-trick at Anfield. He's now scored at the Etihad, so he does have form of scoring
away
in these
big games.
Exactly, yeah. Those are all from April to his away games against Big 6 opponents. But he didn't return at Old Trafford in game week 1. I don't think he even got an assist.
That was Pascal Gross week, wasn't it?
Pascal Gross got both, yeah.
With a big score then. And I think a lot of people will have benched Pereira this week as well. He's sitting first on my bench for 10 points, but then the only person that was likely to not come on and play would have been Doherty, and then it would have been Gahey anyways, instead of Pereira coming on for me. Pereira's 10 points was massive.
We joked last week about, we should have known in hindsight it was bench boost week. Yeah,
this week was ridiculous.
This week even worse. I'll tell you the best one I've seen was sent to me by Joshua Womble. One of his mates had Ward 8, Castagne 12, Bailey 13, Andreas 10. 43 points
mad
on the bench, which will be more than what certainly a number of listeners will have scored this week. Those who haven't captained Haaland and have gone, say, with Mo, with captaincy, are probably going to be on less than that. The majority, I should imagine. So, loads of high scores. I mean, even if you take Ward, Nico Williams, Andreas Pereira, and a Bailey, for example, or I saw a few others. Tyrone Mings as another one, had a 10-pointer yesterday. So, there'll be some big bench scores knocking about, which I've already noted yesterday on the timeline. Had a few people going, should I bench boost this week? Yeah, Danny Ward's got Man City this time. I'd maybe not think about that so much. But the likes of Pereira, I spoke about my intention last week of starting him this week against Everton, which actually, ironically, not because of Pereira, but because of Everton, I'm not so certain on at the moment. But it's an interesting week in the sense that going into the week, a lot of the debate for many people, quite rightly, I think as well, was Foden versus Saka. And this FOMO of having neither. And so many people, I think, took -4s for both. And I think it's understandable they did. So both ended up with 1-pointers each. Foden had a Pep moment. Pep decided to rain on our parade. Saka was booked for a dive. I've got to confess, I haven't seen that incident. So I know a few people were complaining about it.
I saw a highlight of it. It's a bad dive.
Oh, was it really? Can't have been worse than Walcott's. I've seen Walcott's.
No, I haven't seen that.
Theo Walcott dive of the season is absolutely horrendous. 14 players so far this game week, Suj, have got double point hauls. Half of them, 5.5 million, are under midfielders.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was thinking back to last week where we were talking about how low the scores were and a good week to have a bad week. That was only 11 players got double-digit returns, and only 3 of them had high ownership.
14 is a decent number, by the way.
Yeah.
But half of them, 7, 5.5 or under midfielders. Alex Iwobi, shout out to our Everton correspondent, Sean Norton. Stick to your guns, my man. Don't worry, I'll apologise to Sean's face on Clash of the Correspondents next week. Willian at Fulham's also 5.5. Miguel Almiron, I'll talk about him a bit more in a bit. Actually, joke's over now. He's just a bloody good footballer. Xhaka, we've spoken about a lot. Casemiro obviously scored. Bailey and Pereira have been popular for so many people. It's very conceivable that someone's got 3 of them on their bench.
Yep.
Very. You could easily have like Almiron, Bailey, Pereira, couldn't you? If you've on, say, 3 premiums. If you're on like Haaland, Kane and Salah or something like that. It's not inconceivable you've got, say, 3 of them. So, interesting. Just be cautious because that will be the next narrative now. Oh, do we need to even have these 8 million midfielders? Well, I would say that these guys aren't commonly going to go off. And by the way, just while we're on it, if I had to buy one of those players right now, it'd be Almiron. He's on fire.
Yeah, I mean, he's quite a bit more than Pereira, though, right? At this point, if you're not going to play him, it depends whether you're going to play him. Yeah,
but you're not. I would say you're not buying Pereira now as a regular starter. Although it's Everton at home this week, it's then City away and United at home. So you're not investing in him as I want to play him. If you're looking for one now for the 3 games, it's Almiron.
If you want to play him. But then that's the difference between a 4th midfielder and a 5th midfielder.
Get that.
So Almiron for a 4th, I agree. For a 5th, I don't see the point in the money being in there. If it's your 5th midfielder, it's going to be benched.
Maybe there's listeners who've still got a back line of like Cancelo, Trent and Trippier. That's not impossible that people have died into Liverpool this week and they're going, I regret that. I mean, I wouldn't move off it, but I think a lot of the listeners will have Pereira already. Pereira's I want to start him this week, but you're probably not starting him in the 2 Manchester games, I don't think.
No. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm going to come off my Fulham assets, but Mitrovic is expendable after this week. for me. So, yeah, we shall see. Let's talk about some of these games. Have you got any thoughts on this week, or are you just kind of wait and see what happens? European football, obviously. So
yeah, I think it's a very, very good week to just chill out and make a decision afterwards. Current thought process, bus team at the moment would be Pope, Doherty, Trippier, Cancelo, Bowen, Salah, Andreas, Foden, Martinelli, Haaland, Mitrovic. So you mentioned, obviously, Mitrovic potentially being expendable after this week. So I think, yeah, a number of us are looking at that possible move to Xhaka in 15. I'd be benching Solanke as it stands at the moment. That could be regrettable based on what I'm seeing Tottenham defensively at the moment. And Gay at home to Southampton. So I've got good bench cover. So again, it feels like a week where should I be taking a hit here. So a roll's a possibility. Other potential idea is actually to bin Bowen for Saka. Actually hop on and hop off. Just go 1 week and then come back off. Because we are moving into that territory now of I want the immediate points rather than obviously long-term planning. At the moment, my best guess would be that Doherty probably does start at Bournemouth. I've spoken about this because we play Lisbon Wednesday, Bournemouth Saturday, Marseille Tuesday. That I think I'm not surprised that Emerson came back in yesterday, but part of the reason I hold him was actually Doherty might play at Bournemouth. But I can't tell you any more info on that until at least the Sporting Lisbon game's gone. If I'm not comfortable with it and I still want to roll, I just play Gay at home to Southampton, I think.
I'm in the same boat as you. I think I'm going to roll as well. Doherty's the one in my squad that I don't know whether he'll play week to week and I can move him on. I've got 0.4 to add, so it'd be 5 million would be my budget. But this week specifically, I think I might just roll. It'd end up with Pope, Trippier, Doherty, Cancelo, Foden, Salah, Martinelli, Zaha, Haaland, Mitrovic, Wilson. There's literally no reason. And then bench of Pereira, Gahey, and then Dunk, obviously, as Chelsea, and Danny Ward has City, but the likelihood of needing them is very low. So I don't see any reason to make a transfer this week.
Obviously had the two against each other, Zaha and Wilson versus Solanke and Bowen. Your two look much better going into this week with Zaha at home to Southampton and Wilson at home. So he's got Villa at home, hasn't he?
Yeah, Villa at home. Yeah. And then the week after, I've got two going into the final 2 weeks before the World Cup. So I'd rather do that. So as it stands, I'm not likely to do anything myself, to be honest with you.
Something like that in the Champions League. Someone will get injured and change the opinion or something. Just quickly before we do games, Salah.
What about him?
Well, how'd you feel? Because if you looked on your timeline on Saturday, he was like the only thing that existed.
How do I feel?
Some people are bombing him out, mate.
Well, no, I not before Leeds at home.
Captain?
Who've just conceded 3 goals.
Captain?
Is he captainable? Did you see Haaland at the weekend?
Yeah, I see him every weekend.
I can't go against him now.
Salah at home to Leeds, Haaland away to Leicester. It's the same thing as it was last week, and to make a case it's even stronger. Haaland hasn't had a huge haul away from home yet. In fact, I think his biggest one was at West Ham opening day, and it's a decent-sized haul. And listen, if you score twice, that's always absolutely decent. Salah's got 5 in his 2 home games against Leeds. They look like they're on their knees now. They've got 2 points in the last 9 Leeds.
Nah, I'm not going against Haaland.
No, I don't intend to either. But if something happened to him, I'd just captain Mo this week.
Yeah, straightforward.
Twice about it. Would you consider selling him?
Not before Leeds at home. As much as I'm not going to captain him, I still think he's going to be one of the top point scorers this week. Leeds at home is a decent fixture.
I'd refer to our friend Luke Williams, Disable, who reminded me at the weekend. It's a saying he uses a lot. Basically, put yourself in a position to be lucky. Okay, so Liverpool don't look great. He don't look great. Are you in position to get returns against Leeds? Because of his performance as well, purely by owning him, it's a decent differential. Why would I move from Salah to Saka this week? Yeah, okay, Saka's got Forest at home. Salah's got Leeds at home. Oh, Liverpool look terrible. Arsenal look good. They're just fine. That's absolutely right. What are you going to do with the money at the moment? I see, but I'm going to take -4 for Kane. You watch my team lately as well. We're struggling. We're just begging to get to the World Cup now. We're like crawling to the World Cup, begging for a break. Now, obviously, Harry's returning extremely well. Would you consider that as a hit if it worked for you money-wise? Something like Salah to Saka and, I don't know, Tony to Kane, for example.
I wouldn't sell Salah before Leeds at home. And then it doesn't matter what you're going to do with the money. I wouldn't sell Salah before Leeds at home.
The reality is, there's 3 games to go. Salah's got Leeds at home and Southampton at home in now.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. I'm not looking at selling him in. I mean, I sold him in Sky, but I'm not looking at selling him in FPL.
He stays for me unless he gets injured.
Like all the other permutations, combinations, whether it's Kane or even if you don't own Triple City and you want to get to De Bruyne.
For me, there's not a lot.
There's just no reason.
There's not long enough left to thump the money about when he's got 2 good fixtures and Tottenham suddenly look a little bit of a mess defensively over the last couple as well. If there was 8, 9, 10 game weeks before a wild card in your mind or something, you think, I want to restructure my team, fine. But I think my decision in terms of going for him was, I didn't really want him. I said that to you when I got him in for the West Ham captaincy. But the way it fell for me at the time, there was just no logical sense in not buying him because it was going to undo all my good work. Now, of course, if I go back and rewind it, I don't buy him and I take him on in the way I had done, which had been done successfully all of this season so far. But with 3 game weeks to go, it does not make sense to fight and try and restructure my team. Now, if you've only got 2 Man City players and you're thinking, I want to get De Bruyne back in for Salah, then I think that's a little bit of a different argument. I've got 3 Man City. Does it truly make sense for me to go Salah to Xhaka? Is that where we're at as an example? Because I think there'll be plenty of debate in that. Does that make sense? And then what am I doing with the 4 million?
It doesn't to me, but,
I think the value doesn't matter. A lot of people's argument with Mo at the moment is he's not justifiable, that money. Absolutely agree. But with 3 weeks to do this unlimited, there's not enough time to be thumping it about, I don't think. And his fixtures don't tell me that he can't do well in these games.
Yep, agreed.
Well, I suppose it's segue. Let's talk about him and what happened on Saturday now.
Well, they lost, James.
They lost.
Away at Nottingham Forest. It can happen to the best of us. Cheeky little 1-0 with Awoniyi on the score sheet. I've been there once before.
I feel like it was a very similar goal as well. It's a little bit scrappy, wasn't it? They look better having him in the team, by the way. Mo. So Mo played obviously up front. I think a number of us, and certainly it felt like the theme from people once the team lineup came out. And I think those who gambled Salah captaincy this week, and I'd take my hat off to you. I think like brave people say, it's stupid in hindsight. We can all be hindsight merchants. It was a close call. I understand why you went for it. But I think most probably would have seen the team and went, I maybe wish, if I'd have seen the team, I might not have done that. So there was 2 ways of looking at it. There was one going, but he's playing through the middle. That's what I wanted. But I think the more important thing was who's going to get the ball to him. With no Trent and no Thiago, so key, neither of them being available in the team. And they just looked a bit stale and flat. Now, on a different day, Van Dijk scores a hat-trick from set pieces. Not legitimately, but you would have expected him to put something away in the game there. He had 3 decent chances, 2 big chances, and another one that was squared across the box with his left foot in the second half as well. Forest looked bad on set pieces, by the way. Where they win the game, it's not flamboyant or at their best, but they win the game, they get out of town and they move on. But they looked so flat. Watching the game, not really thinking that they were going to get back in it. Like when Forest scored, my reaction wasn't, they're going to come and throw the kitchen sink back at Forest. And they obviously did have a lot territorially. My instinct was, there's every chance they're getting beat here, even though there was a good half hour or so to go. Because they hadn't shown anything in terms of open play situations where they were going to hurt Forest. And it was obvious Forest were going to go in deep. I mean, not long after the goal, Cooper took Awoniyi off and he basically went 5-5-0 and said, go on, what have you got? And yet Forest had just as good chances on the counter-attack. Alisson made another brilliant save from Yates after the first goal. They had decent breakaway moments as well. So great result for Forest. On Salah, what Mo needs is space. I think a difficult one in the sense that the way Forest played a compact back 4 originally and the 3 in midfield. Remember when they lost to Fulham, Forest, and we said they've got to do something with the 2 in midfield because teams are finding pockets in the half space way too easy. I think the problem for Mo is when he plays right up front, he's very static. He doesn't have, we've spoken about Nunez's movement quite a lot lately. He's really good. Mo when he comes alive in the box and it's around him, he can do incredible things. But is his actual centre forward movement that great? I don't think it is. Like, I think he's very static. I don't think he's looking to make curved runs to get in behind people. It's almost like he's there waiting for it. I'm watching the game thinking, come away from them. Like, honestly, just drop into midfield for a couple of minutes of the game to make them think, oh, do I need to go with you? Do something to test them, where it just feels like he's there. Mo Salah is one of them footballers I often refer to. He needs to see the game. He needs to see the game. I often wonder, how would he look if he played left wing? And he's taking his man on the touchline and getting crosses over and stuff. It's a very different player, isn't it?
Yep.
We've not seen it, not in the Premier League with Liverpool anyway. So I think he needs to see the game. Personally, I think the change to the back four has made Liverpool stronger defensively and covered up some of the weaknesses, although they were still there again on Saturday, but it's not making them better offensively. And for Mo specifically, the best thing would be to go back to right of a 4-3-3. But I don't know if they're going to do that. I think irrespective of where he played and how they set up at home to Leeds and Southampton, he could do damage.
Yeah.
That would be my take. But yeah, they were flat. They were horrible. They obviously missed Nunez, who is another one people gambled on. You know, wait for information is obviously the advice. They've got a big Champions League game against Ajax on Wednesday, which if they get a result, they're through. Defensively, Van Dijk had the chance at the weekend. If you were to go and invest, then I still think Van Dijk, because I wouldn't be surprised again if there's a rest for particularly Robertson, maybe not so much Trent after he's just had this one. I still think you could look at them over the next three. That might sound ridiculous. Gomez I wouldn't go near. He did not play well. He gave away the foul that led to the goal, and then he had a really bizarre moment a few minutes later where Awani got played in on the right channel, and it was Gomez's ball to have, but he didn't have it because he was literally not looking at the ball and he was just running backwards. It was bizarre. I actually involuntary, I have the involuntary mouth moments. It was one of, what are you doing, mate? You've lost your mind. So I wouldn't be surprised if Konate or Matip come back in, particularly by the time we get to the Tottenham game in game week 15. Great result for Forest. Nothing we'd look at asset-wise. Just a little note on them in the sense that obviously Lodi came back on. Renan Lodi came on at left back towards the end of the game. And I thought Serge Aurier was quite impressive. So I wouldn't be that surprised if Williams came out of the team. That's, how much you're intending to start him over what's to come. I don't think you will. Who have they got this weekend? So
Forest.
Yeah.
They're playing Arsenal, aren't they?
Oh, of course they are. We won't be starting him this week anyway, so that doesn't particularly matter. Awani scored in all three of his home starts. Okay. They look better with him in the team, in my opinion. They had 5 big chances, Forest. It's a theme with Liverpool that it's not going away. No. They're conceding too many big chances to teams. Obviously, we'll be better off having Trent back in the team as well. I keep seeing a lot of people talk about Trent in midfield. I'm not in agreement with that.
Okay. Everton won the other side of Merseyside 3-0 against Palace. I didn't see this one coming. I didn't see the clean sheet coming, and I didn't see the comprehensive victory coming. I thought Crystal Palace would get something out of it, but they didn't. Quite straightforward. Dominic CalvertLewin back in the starting lineup and on the score sheet as well. And I guess Iwobi being one of the players that you listed that's below 5.5 million. Or 5.5 million.
I'm so pleased for Sean and our Everton correspondent and anybody else who might have gone on Iwobi, because we did have a good joke about it. It's interesting. Obviously, Newcastle and Everton was the COTC I did last Tuesday with Simon and Sean, and a lot of the chat was Almiron and Iwobi featured quite a lot, right? And they're doing absolutely great. Iwobi's on, I want to say, 5 assists now this season. And 1 goal. I think it's only KDB's got more, possibly. So he's doing great. He's actually creating chances, and the 2 assists are great, by the way. Particularly the flick on the 3rd goal as well. That's a player full of confidence. One thing we have said on this podcast about him is he's been playing very well for quite a while. Would I go and buy him this week? No. I'd still buy Almiron at cheaper, for example. They do have 3 good fixtures. I think I'd have to put my hands up and say he looks a reasonable option. If anybody's got, they're absolutely delighted. And he's playing well. Everton are much better, obviously, for having Dominic Calvert-Lewin back in their team. Goes without saying, you've got a forward that suits the style and brings other players into play. Great result. He scored 3 terrific goals. The second goal, although it ends with a tap-in from Gordon, is a brilliant goal that starts with the goalkeeper, involves more than half the team, goes down the right-hand side, ends up on the left side. It's a shame Mikalenko's shot didn't go straight in, because it's a brilliant move. So fair play to them. Fair play to Lampard. He's had a lot of stick. I spoke with Sean when we did that pod last Tuesday. The thing is, because of these 4 fixtures Everton have got, of which Palace was the first, there's an opportunity here to get out of this mess. This is Fulham away, Leicester at home, and I forget who they finished with, but it's a last fixture, a decent last fixture before the World Cup as well. So have they got 16?
Bournemouth away.
Bournemouth away, yes. It's decent fixtures. So it's Fulham away, which looks tougher at the moment, admittedly. Leicester at home, which might also look a little bit tougher. But at home, it's still fancy Everton, arguably. And Bournemouth away. For Palace, they have to change this with the system. Now, the one mitigating for them was Zohore, we joked about on Friday. Oh, it's not relevant. Yes, it is relevant because they missed him hugely. I could not believe when I saw the Palace team that he'd left Jeffrey Schlupp out at Vieira. I couldn't believe it. Because for me, it was an absolute given if he was going to play Milivojevic, who's not the player that he was when he kind of peaked 4 or 5 years ago, was going to struggle if he played as a one-man midfield with Elise and Eze pushing further on. He was going to need Schlupp next to him, or he was going to need Will Hughes as a deep-line playmaker who could dictate the play in the game. Vieira left him there in massive trouble. So I think they're trying to evolve to a more offensive team, and they're giving themselves big defensive headaches. This is not working for them. Too many cooks have spoken about this. Again, Zaha ending up too wide in the game. Didn't feel like he had an impact. So I don't think they're right at the moment. Not to the extent I think they'd be in trouble. We've got too many good players. And I think they could play Man City tomorrow and they'd give them difficulties, for example. But I don't think this system is working. I think he's trying to evolve to get all the best players that he wants in the team. And I don't think it's working. I think they could go back to a 3 of Zaha, Eze, Elise behind Edouard, put someone else like Schlupp, or even if they want to play a bit more football, Hughes next to Zohore, now he's back fit, 4-2-3-1, because you're not getting the fullbacks high either. Then do it that way. And that's why I think he's doing it, by the way. Because I don't think he has the fullbacks that he wants. So often with 4-1-4-1, because there's such a responsibility on the 2 wide players to stay so wide, fullbacks don't get so high. And I think that's part why he's trying it. I think that will be the next step for Palace, is more offensive fullbacks, but it's not working.
I feel like
and I think you need to take a step back.
Palace, I feel like I dodged a bullet a little bit with. Even though I own 2 of their players in Gahey and Zaha, I didn't pile into them in Sky Fantasy, for example, just because of the timing. And there, I just feel like I've dodged the bullet because there haven't been the clean sheets that I thought, you know what, their fixture run is so good. I'm not going to play Gahey now until the World Cup. But also, Zaha has, Southampton and...
it's West Ham away and Forest away.
Yeah. Forest and Southampton are decent enough fixtures. West Ham will be more trickier, but I can't be selling Zaha now before the World Cup with the Southampton and Forest games. Just don't see it. I'm just going to ride it out.
You don't sell him before Southampton at home.
No, he's definitely not going this week.
Then you might make a choice depending on what you've got. I don't think you buy now.
No, definitely not.
No, I'd look elsewhere. I'd look at saving the money with some of the players we've already mentioned, enablers. You wouldn't buy as new. Defensively, for those of us who've got Gay, there's obviously a bit of a debate whether we start or don't start this week. Some will have Anderson, obviously an alternative, or Mitchell. I think it literally comes down to availability of other players will determine whether I do or I don't. Southampton at home is still a decent fixture for defensive potential, and I wouldn't be that shocked if they kept a clean sheet. Particularly if Vieira did change it, I'd fancy him quite quickly for that. But I don't know if he's going to. His comments after the game gave me an inkling that he might have gone, yeah, this hasn't worked. I need to change it back and firm it up a little bit more. Because he was not happy with the way they played. He didn't pull up any arguments.
No.
Just, completely well beat. Well done to Everton. Calvert-Lewin, I mentioned this several weeks ago, so this Mitrovic to Xhaka idea in 15. One of the ones I mentioned weeks ago was the idea of going Mitrovic to Calvert-Lewin in 15, which, subject to his fitness this weekend at Fulham, might begin to interest people before going in suddenly for those last two Everton fixtures against Leicester at home and Bournemouth away. They are so much better for just having his presence, even though he's nowhere near 100% fit yet.
Man City 3, Brighton 1. Haaland now, again, that's 17 and 11 in the league, is it?
16-11, I think. I don't know. Check.
I feel like it's 17 and 11.
I'm going for 16. Should we have a wager?
No, let's not. Let's just.
How many's he got?
17 and 11.
Okay. Goes back to notes.
Yeah, and 3 assists. Let's not forget those.
Oh my God.
It just keeps stacking up. I can't see a situation where I'm not going to want to captain him now moving forward. I'm sure there will be one, but I can't see it. But
they have a number of difficult away games in January where you may feel there's a spell you can take him on.
Yeah, if you're brave.
Leicester have just kept 4 clean sheets in 5. I do think there's a discussion to be had here.
What about captain Haaland versus Salah?
About looking at an alternative, yeah.
Yeah, I think at any
I'm not going to, by the way.
I'm all for people trying to take on Haaland. I'm all for it. If you want to do it and you have the cojones to do it, do it.
You have to remember.
I just don't.
You have to remember as well that there's different people in different situations, right? And there's some people with ranks who perhaps they're not happy with at the moment and are desperate to try and get that fixed. And the quickest way of getting it fixed is you beat Haaland on the captaincy. That's the quickest way to do it. The problem is it can also be just as damaging as people will have seen this week. But there will be some who will double down. All I'd say is just make sure, if you are thinking of doubling down and going Salah captaincy over Haaland this week, that's absolutely fine. In my opinion, it arguably looks even better than it did last week. But just check that you're doing it for the right reasons, i.e. you're not doing it because you're on tilt, or you're not doubling down for the sake of doubling down, or I need to make up what I lost last week. If you believe Salah's the right choice because you believe Salah will truly outscore Haaland and you want to take him on, do it. I'm okay with that. There'll be so many people screaming that, I've had enough, I can't do that, yada, yada, yada. Well, actually, we'll talk about Leicester in a little bit, and it certainly has improved. But we have to talk about your mate Trossard, Suj.
Okay.
Do you not think it's hilarious?
What, that he scored? I don't know. It just, there's not really. It's just, this is one thing. It's another FPL player that's scored after being sold.
Do you think you'll ever buy him again?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll happily do that.
100%.
He's not one of them where you're going to be like, you're cursed about it, or...
No. I'm more likely to never buy Wilfried Zaha again.
I can't believe...
Than Trossard.
I can't believe...
Trossard's fine.
Zaha gets me all the time, you know that. I can't believe I took a -4 for him for one game and it paid off.
Zaha?
Last week against Wolves, yeah.
Yeah, I'm more likely to buy... never buy Zaha again than Trossard, for example. Just one of those things. Like, he's obviously one of their attacking players. They did well. They got a lot. They had more of the possession. They created
58% second half
chances, and so inevitably, if Brighton are going to score, he's going to have high percentage chance goal involvement. But between now and the end of the season, Foden will outscore Trossard, including yesterday's game.
I'm sure he will.
Including yesterday's game.
We'll come on to Foden in a sec.
Neither here nor there. The fact that Foden didn't play, for me, is a good thing. Because he's had his rest.
No.
He's had his rest.
No. This isn't how it works, Suj. This isn't how it works. They've got Borussia Dortmund on Tuesday in the Champions League. So presumably it starts now, tomorrow night.
Why? They're already through.
Yeah, but they still want... If they lose, then top spot is potentially in doubt.
Yeah, but I think you can bring him off the bench. That doesn't mean... I also think he can just as easily play because he's fit enough that he can play any game.
All I'm warning is, we've been here before, and I know I've been here with Foden before, where you do this and you go, oh, he's missed this one, he's definitely going to miss the next... He's definitely going to start the next one. We've had that with Mahrez before. We keep going. It was at the start of last season, you keep going, he's going to play the next one, and it went on like 3-4 weeks. And you never want to take him out because you're like, he definitely plays the next one, doesn't he? And I'm pretty sure that Phil Foden does start all of Man City's remaining Premier League games. But also won't be shocked if he doesn't.
But after Leicester this week, so you're not going to sell him this week because you're thinking he's going to play, right?
There's no chance I'm selling him.
And you're not going to sell him the week after because then it's Fulham at home.
I made the decision to buy Phil Foden for the 4 weeks and that's the end of it.
So almost not even worth discussing. I'm the same as you. Like, I'm not selling him before the end of the season. Even if he didn't play against Leicester, you're going to say then it's Fulham at home. I'm not going to sell him. And if it's not Fulham at home, then it's Brentford home the last day or whatever. You're just going to... You're done. You're keeping him till the World Cup, unless he gets injured. So...
Yeah, of course.
Such is life.
Don't come off Foden if you think, oh my God, he's been so, I want to move it. And don't do that, please. Obviously, keep him. Brighton went with a man-to-man all over the pitch. And that's part what led to the first goal. So Haaland, obviously under some form of explanation, took Lewis Dunk quite far, deep, and Dunk followed him, kept following him. They really went man-to-man the whole pitch. And then what they did is obviously from the goal, Dunk's followed him and Haaland's gone, oh my God, look at that space. Thank you very much. And obviously in Ederson, they have this quarterback goalkeeper who can drop it wherever you want. And that's how they scored the goal. But I think that's very brave, the way Brighton went and played, and it caused Manchester City some problems. That 58% second half stat is great. It didn't overly threaten too much, I would say. But as I said last week, I have no doubt that positive results will be around the corner for Brighton. They have a few decent ones coming up after Chelsea, which we know will be 1-1 at the weekend. We could just say that now, can't we, I think? Yep. Probably. Cool. Just a note, John Stones was back on the bench for City because it's a probably not so much, but I know there's some that like can't get to Cancelo. I keep seeing it everywhere. I can't get to Cancelo. So unless you're on the free City attackers, I think you are constantly looking at like the Akanjis and the Akis and stuff like that. Aki obviously missed out this week. There's nothing to say it won't be, say, Akanji next week, for example, because he can easily just put Cancelo at right back and Aki or Laporte's back fit now at left back, or bring Gomez in at left back. So I wouldn't go for them at the moment. Despite the 3 fixtures, I would get to 3 of the 4 players that you really want. Suj and I have got Cancelo, Foden, Haaland. The 4th is obviously KDB.
Yep.
If you want to be there. If you're on KDB, you've had a better weekend than most, I should imagine.
Chelsea 1, Man United 1, talking of 1-1s. Graham Potter.
I loved this. I thoroughly enjoyed this. And I know a lot of people thought it was paint dry. And it did become that way. But it became that way because Graham Potter realised he was in so much trouble. So I thought United would win this game. And the reason I thought they'd win the game is it showed me that they could really press and get in the faces of Chelsea in the way they got in the way of Tottenham last Wednesday. Now, Chelsea have, I think, better press-resistant footballers. I spoke about this on one of the shows we did on Friday. I couldn't believe that Kovacic wasn't in a Chelsea team. As soon as I saw that, I genuinely was staggered because he's such a brilliant and clever midfield player. Jorginho just had a bad day. So they started with a back 3, Chelsea. We can never be too sure. And one of the things I wasn't sure of was in tipping United to win was, you know, with Tottenham what you're going to get. You know exactly what you're getting, certainly in terms of build-up play at the moment, whereas Chelsea can obviously flip-flop between the 3s and the 4s. United were so dominant in that opening half hour. But full credit to Potter for realising that the midfield 3, Casemiro, Eriksen and Fernandes, were just running and bossing the game. And if Chelsea ever did get beyond that, the back 4 were excellent. Dalot and Luke Shaw are back to... I say Luke Shaw is getting back to England Euros form. And Dalot's just played 490 minutes in the space of a 12-day period. And he looks stronger, fitter, leaner, faster, beginning to look a good player. The loss of Varane, who I presume isn't going to play before the World Cup, is a big, big loss. But it doesn't look like it's serious, as in he wouldn't be available come the Christmas period, for example. But that will be a blow to lose him for a little bit. But Potter was decisive in scrapping his game plan, because it wasn't working. Took Cucurella off, brought Kovacic into the game, moved Chelsea into a diamond, and then it became a chess match. And I enjoyed what I saw of the chess match. I think in the end, both teams probably was quite happy to go away with the draw, and yet it ended with this frantic finale because McTominay was a bit of an idiot from a corner kick where he wasn't really under massive pressure. Chelsea get the penalty, you think they've nicked it and won it, and it would have been really harsh, I think, on United to lose, although they didn't do enough, I think, to win it in the second half, but it would have been harsh to lose. And then the equaliser was obviously incredibly dramatic. It would have been 11-pointer for Kepa if it had stayed out, ended on 3. That is a huge swing on a goal. That said, obviously, Kepa owners have obviously done very, very well lately.
You can't really be complaining.
Well, I think you can, because he's so nearly pulled off another brilliant save. There was a thought at the time, had his hand been what took it over the line, but it was over before he got his hand on it. What a header from Casemiro, and what a player he is, by the way. Absolutely brilliant. If he stays fit, United are absolutely in contention for top 4. If something happens to him, they'll fall off again. I genuinely think it's going to be that important. I'm so impressed with what I've seen of him and how quickly he's settled, not only into the team, I don't think it was a debate about him as a player, but how quickly he's picked up the pace of our league has been very, very impressive. He's only come into the team since, after they lost to City, and they've been much better since then. So he's played the 4 games now. They haven't lost in any of them. He's going to be hugely crucial for them. So too the back two, Varane and Martinez, building up a really good relationship. Obviously, they're going to be without Varane, you would think, for these remaining 3 games, but they can probably get through these 3 okay without him, I would guess.
Let's move to Sunday, James. We've got a few more games. It was a busy Sunday because of the midweek fixtures. Aston Villa 4, Brentford 0. Talking about narratives and stories and all this, you just can't write it though, can you? And you're like, whether Villa were right to get rid of Steven Gerrard or not, there's lots of people with different opinions. But if you were a Gerrard out, this is like ultimate vindication for your opinion, isn't it? Even though there could be so many other elements to the whole story, just feels bonkers. 4-0. Ings, Watkins, Bailey, all on the score sheet. So your front 3 it's interesting and attacking front 3. You were talking about Buendia playing, and he did.
Yeah, it was such an easy win and obvious move.
And off you go.
Yeah, exactly what I spoke to you about on Friday. It was such an easy win and obvious move to put Buendia in the team and still play the other 3 attacking players and play with an attacking 4. And have, interestingly, Watkins and Bailey switch sides. To none of this inverted stuff. Bailey played left touch, Watkins played right touchline, and they just stretched Brentford. They started fast. You've got instantly the crowd's up, is what I'd said to you. The crowd's going to be really up for it because they've got what they wanted and they know the team's in a mess and the team needs to get results quite quickly. And I don't know if we've got a mice or something because the bin just moved, Suj, and it put me off. The bin lid just literally went. There's nobody anywhere near it.
Could be a gust of wind.
Interesting that neither McGinn or Ramsey played. So Dendoncker came in with Luiz. And I think the thinking behind that is it looked like, from what I'd seen of the game, Dendoncker did an out-and-out kind of sitting job. We've often seen him be actually the midfield runner from Wolves when they've had the creativity and the technical quality of Moutinho and Neves. But it looked like he played a real anchor role, which allowed Douglas Luiz to go on. Good result. Good result for Villa. It started hard and fast. Lee Jackson's going to join me on the fan view tomorrow, so we'll speak in a lot more detail about Villa then. We'll also be speaking to Tom Med in detail about Brentford on Clash the Correspondence this week. So just a couple of notes. Ben Mee didn't start because he's had an ankle problem this week. And I think that was notable, and he'll come straight back into the team. They've now conceded 9 in their last 2 away games, 4 at Villa, 5 against Newcastle. I've had this long-held belief, Suj, that they really do struggle away from home and are not the most difficult team to beat when you play them at home. The good news is for them, their next away game is easy, Suj. Yeah, won't be taking on Erling Haaland that day.
Is that the next away game? Sorry. So the home game is next. First,
they've got Wolves at home this weekend. And do you know what? Last time they lost at Newcastle. They responded very well with the performances against
Forest
Brighton and
away
Chelsea.
first.
Or was it Forest away first? Well, that's ruined my narrative, isn't it? Is Man City away is the last one, is it?
Correct.
Can I be honest with you? I'd expect them to get beat at Forest.
Yeah.
As well. Just don't fancy them away from home. Tony owners, back free again, no return. I'm actually going to look at the numbers before this clash of correspondence. But what have they got this week? Wolves at home and then Forest away. You ain't moving, are you?
No.
I don't think. Are you?
No.
What would you move to this week? Mitrovic if you haven't got?
Skamaka. No.
I've got United away. You're not moving this week. No. That's not your biggest problem.
Leeds 2, Fulham 3. Before we start talking about it, I had to go and cheekily check and make sure that Jesse Marsch was not, headline on the BBC Sport website.
Is he or not?
No, he is not.
I don't think he will be either.
No, I don't think he should be. I mean, 2 points in 9, is it, from 9 games is not good, and they've slipped into the relegation zone. But I don't know. I still kind of back them to get out of it.
Those 2 points as well, home to Villa, home to Everton. It's not great reading, is it? So, yeah, look, they're absolutely in the shit now. I don't think they should change, is my instinct. I don't think they should just yet. I think there's what are they trying to do? I see last week against Arsenal what they're trying to do. I saw against Chelsea early in the season what they're trying to do. I think they're obviously trying to get Brentford up to speed. They've got issues defensively, and it always feels with Leeds that if you have a key player taken out the team, big problems. Tyler Adams didn't play yesterday. And I think that was noticeable in the midfield area. And how many times have we said it last couple of years, Leeds without Calvin Phillips, just get walked through. And it felt a bit like that yesterday. Tyler Adams is not a player we've spoken much on the FPL podcast this season. We speak about him quite a bit on the Sky Pods. He's become a very important player quite quickly for Leeds, and they missed him yesterday. It's not excused some of the defending. It did change both fullbacks. You'd have thought Stratt coming back in for Firpo would have improved it. Interestingly, Luke Ayling came back in at right back. They're in a difficult moment. Despite Leeds' form, you can only imagine that becomes 2 points in 10 at the weekend, can't you?
Yep. And
then, you're in the bottom 3 then, and you really are looking over your shoulder. They go to Tottenham in Gameweek 16. What's their fixture in 15, Suj? Leeds? It's Bournemouth at home, I want to say.
You're right. It is Bournemouth at home.
I mean, how big is that? And first game after the World Cup's Man City?
At home, yeah.
Wow.
Followed by Newcastle. Followed by West Ham. And then Aston Villa. Now, so 3 tough games.
Look, judging by the performances against Chelsea and Arsenal this season, maybe they're better off having some of them games. Maybe it will suit them a little bit better. But, I mean, if you would look at that now and think, because Liverpool and Tottenham's both away, if they didn't get anything against Bournemouth, 2 points in 9 could quickly become 2 points from 13, couldn't it? And he probably doesn't survive that.
No.
So I think if they lose the next 3, they would look at that World Cup period and think, maybe time for a change. You don't wait for Man City to destroy you and then change, do you? No. I think if they don't get anything the next 3, would I be surprised if suddenly it did break and Jesse Marsch was sacked? No, not particularly. I'm not sure it's right yet, though, actually. For Fulham.
Good for another week. Everton at home, so you obviously keep him this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't buy Mitrovic right now. No. I'd say us owners are definitely not in a sell position, but he's not right. He's not right. Twice during the game yesterday, once in the first half and then once again in the second half, Mitrovic was asked if he could carry on. He's not training, basically. He's not training properly. He's just getting through the games. This injury is ongoing. And I wouldn't be surprised if suddenly the team dropped at the weekend against Everton, he's not in it, for example. I don't think that sort of thing's impossible because he's not 100%. And you may hear murmurs during the week, he's not training again. Well, he's not been properly for the last few weeks. Put the ball in the right area for him, though, and he will get returns. Harry Wilson essentially creates Fulham's first goal by drawing Rodrigo out of the near post space for Mitrovic. If you do not have a player that defends the front post at corners, you are going to die because it's the most dangerous corner in this league to defend if you get it into the right area. And Mitrovic is going to be unstoppable if you haven't got someone screening that zone. and Wilson's little run pulls Rodrigo out. He shouldn't go. They should have another player to come and deal with that, or someone else has to come into the front post zone. Wilson's return is more good news for Fulham, who are doing absolutely great. Are they still the 5th highest scorers in this league, Suj, or have they gone above that now? You can have a little check for us.
Goals for...
I noticed Adebayo obviously came back into the team, which was as surprising as when it was that he was originally left out. I don't know why that's changed back. Personally, I think Fulham would be a little bit better off with him in the team. But by all accounts, Diop had done quite well. Cordova-Reid's header for the second goal was absolutely brilliant. He's been covering up right back at the moment and doing an absolutely fine job. You spoke very highly about Anthony Robinson's performance at West Ham the other week. He's back to full fitness, doing well. The two in midfield, Harrison Reed would have caught many's eye on the highlights. He'd be a decent 4.5 option if he didn't have Pereira at slightly a fraction higher. Paulinho is so important to them. Decent team. They honestly are a really decent team. Tell us the answer, Suj, while your phone's ringing.
It was my mother.
Hi, Mum. Do you need to speak to Mum?
Nah, basically it's half term this week, right?
Oh, so she needs help.
No, she doesn't need help. She's desperate for me to drop the kids off.
Oh, why don't you do it?
Oh, I don't need to. But she's just like, leave the kids here for a whole week because it's half term. Anyone with grandparents, kids.
Why wouldn't you do that?
They're the 4th highest scorers in the league.
4th now, is it?
Yeah, they're joint with Liverpool. They've overtaken Newcastle. But yeah, agreed.
Another one, I think, despite the fixture this week, moments gone to buy. I think, I wouldn't consider Tony to Mitrovic. If someone's got the hump with Tony for, because it's been a couple of blanks, 2 blanks in a row, so what? I wouldn't be making that sideways move this week because I think you'd just be moving Mitrovic on for the next one. So, yeah, I think the moment has gone to invest, but having Pereira and Mitrovic on the other side of the World Cup is still completely viable again.
Southampton won, Arsenal won. I mean, obviously Southampton led for a while as well. I was thinking that this could be Arsenal's second defeat of the season.
They were never in danger of losing the game, really. They were more danger of losing it at Leeds, I think.
They were losing, though.
Who were?
Arsenal.
They weren't.
Oh, did they not? I thought it was 1-0 to Southampton first.
What game was you watching? You obviously weren't watching it. You wasn't watching this one.
I had it on SofaScore.
Xhaka scored after about 11 minutes.
Maybe I'm going mad then.
Yeah,
there was some mad results yesterday, mind. But
it's true.
Villa with 4.
No, Arsenal were winning. Xhaka scored early with the goal that we mentioned about Ben White on the overlap down the right-hand side. Southampton equalised in the moment where, again, their equalising goal also started with a goalkeeper. Brilliant little move. Aribo's step over, completely opens up. And Saliba and Ben White end up crossing. And it's nobody's fault. It's just the fact that Southampton broke through the lines really quickly and well. Once you have a crossover, shit can go wrong. Because then you have confusion about who's responsible to take certain runs. Elyounoussi, without an attacking return all season, assisted Stuart Armstrong without an attacking return all season. From there, it never really felt like Southampton were going to threaten to win the game. I didn't overly think that Arsenal were going to win the game either. I only watched the second half of this, in all honesty. I was watching it outside White Hart Lane. And the best noise of the day was when Southampton equalised, I can assure you. We didn't have a lot more to celebrate after that. It started with basically the old-fashioned 4-2-2-2 Saints. Quickly kind of got rid of that once Arsenal had domination, moved more into a back 3/back 5. Elyounoussi did some very diligent work for the team, including chasing down Jesus, who was a one-on-one. When was the last time Jesus scored, Suj?
I'm not sure, but I saw my cousin yesterday and he said it's winter.
It's winter?
Jesus doesn't play well when it gets cold, apparently.
Is that a thing?
He seems to think so. I mean, Jesus didn't.
Sounds like a very dodgy narrative to me.
However, James, tell us, when's the last time Jesus scored?
I don't know why I asked this question out loud because it was obviously against Tottenham, wasn't it? Look, he's got 5 goals, 4 assists, and these returns from 12 games is not bad at all, right? It's returning 75%, if you will.
But it's fair to say we probably expected a bit more.
Well, I think so. If you look at the returns...
I thought he was going to be prolific, and I wouldn't describe him as prolific.
He's got 9 attacking returns, but he got 4 of them in game week 2 against Leicester. So obviously, since there's 5 attacking returns since game week 2, you got returns of 4, 1, 6, 1, 6, 8, 5, 2, 2. Which, again, at his value, is perfectly reasonable. But I think with Arsenal now, we have alternatives in Saka, Martinelli, White, the Salibas and Gabriels, and Xhaka. All interesting options, where obviously in the forward areas we have Mitrovic, Toney, I think Xhaka, possibly even Calvert-Lewin, at similar and slightly cheaper prices that can definitely be considered at the moment. Now, if you've got Jesus, you're not selling this week, right? It's Forest at home. But a little bit like with Mitrovic, I think in 15 there might be a decision to be made where Arsenal go to Chelsea. Now, is that a fixture that might suit Jesus a little bit more? It might do, actually. But I think where he's a blank against Forest, you'll get a mass selling, I think, going into game week 15, particularly if, say, Xhaka was to do well tonight or do well at Old Trafford in game week 14, or if Calvert-Lewin was to do really well against Fulham on Saturday, for example. For Saints, nothing to look at, but really good result for them. It's obviously 4 points from the last 2, which is good because they were on a real bad period. This always happens with them. Suddenly the fight comes back into them and they get a couple of decent results. And I think probably overall, by the sounds of it, and I can't say I was concentrating on the game fully, and I didn't see hardly any of the first half, it does sound like Southampton were probably value for the draw. Certainly, Arsenal didn't do enough from 1-1, I think, to look like they were going to win the game.
Should we talk about Wolves 0, Leicester 4?
So Leicester scored with their first 4 shots on goal, which included an absolute screamer from Yuri Tielemans. Absolutely brilliant goal. Diego Costa had 8 chances in the game, Suj.
Wow.
Yeah, don't buy him. I've seen all of those 8 chances, and I didn't think he was going to score with any of them. A few of them were blocked. A few of them were like back pass headers. They're in a shit. And I don't want to speak about Wolves too much because Bradley's coming on Clash of Correspondence this week. As I said, it's going to be fun having Tom and Bradley. They've both just lost 4-0, haven't they? So good one to get them on. It's not for FPL assets. It's for the crack this week, Clash of the Correspondence on Thursday. There is lots of speculation of things happening at Wolves at the moment, i.e. who's picking the team, who's doing the tactics. There's some interesting rumoured stuff. It is a football club that is currently in a very, very bad place. They obviously came out last week and said they were going to give Steve Davis till into the new year, didn't they, Suj? I don't know if they might need to quickly revise what they're doing because they might find themselves adrift come that point in January. And the position they're in and the results they're having, there is no time to waste. They've got Brentford away next. They've got Arsenal at home in 16. And what's their 15 fixture, Suj?
Wolves have in game at 15. I'll tell you in a second. Brighton at home.
I wouldn't fancy him in that either.
No, despite Brighton's bad results recently.
Well, I keep saying I think results will come for Brighton. Just an interesting one on Leicester. So they've obviously scored 11 goals in their last 5 matches from an XG of 4.79. Massively overperforming at the moment against their expected. Now, look, results good. We've had 4-0 against Forest, 2-0 against Leeds, 4-0 at Wolves. They also had a clean sheet against Palace as well. Wout Faes has clearly made a difference. Sideshow Bob stroke 2. Obviously came into the team from the Tottenham game, and then after that, they've obviously started improving. And they've been without Johnny Evans in the last couple. So I think we can credit him with making a difference. That said, the game they did lose at Bournemouth, he was at fault for him. He had a part to play, certainly in the equalising goal and partly in the second goal as well, where concentration levels just went. He is David Luiz, mate. He's the coming of him again, where he's going to look 9 out of 10s quite often and then just have off days. But he's certainly made a difference to them. It's very good. They've been without Ndidi. I think Samari and Mendy have been managing minutes. Samari's regularly been starting and Mendy coming on. That's shoring up that issue a little bit. Tielemans is starting to play better. Maddison came back in the team, got another great goal yesterday. I don't think any of us really doubted that Leicester would get themselves out. We spoke about this a few weeks ago, even when it was at its lowest. We still think they'll get out of it because they'll score too many goals. He did score 4 goals to win another game of football, though, but there were no danger of conceding many here. He's 4 clean sheets in 5. The Danny Ward joke needs to stop a little bit at the moment. We need to dish out a little bit of credit. There was one very good save from Daniel Podence in the first half yesterday. Otherwise, the saves were relatively straightforward. But I imagine Leicester from here will be okay. This run of results, this 5-game period that we said was going to be really important for them, they've got 10 points. That's a great return. And it means, I think, at any time when they have good little runs of fixtures, they'll get out. They've got too many goal scorers in that team. I know it was Vardy's first goal of the season. Was he trying to tell the Wolves fans that they smelt after he scored? Did you see it? He was waving his finger like, oh, you smell.
I don't know if it's he normally does like animal related.
I think he did a howl and then he stopped and he did that. I don't know what that was all about.
I'm not sure.
Well, Jamie Vardy's been stinking the place out for a while, actually, himself. His first goal of the season. The forwards are worth avoiding. Obviously, not buying Leicester this week because it's Manchester City in any case. Maddison is still a reasonable hold if you're still on. It's another one that, a little bit like Trossard, people have sold this week, and I think it's understandable. It's returned again. It's very consistent, James Maddison.
He has been for a little while now. Last but not least, there was a game in London. I mean, it was torrential rain. Yesterday afternoon was mental.
Well, I was hoping it was going to be serious thunder at half time. We're going to piss off and call the game off.
No, but Spurs 1, Newcastle 2. I didn't see you losing, but
I was concerned about this. I'd predicted it for a draw, and I know a few Spurs fans prior to the game I was speaking to actually genuinely thought there was every chance we'd get beat. And that confidence got worse when we saw the team. And I said to you, I'd have been considering taking Romero out the team anyway. But it felt worse that there was no choice in the matter. Yeah. And Højbjerg was obviously a miss for us as well. We had 10 minutes without him against Eintracht Frankfurt in the Champions League, and we nearly shit the bed against 10 men. He's such an important player for us now. So that didn't help. Sanchez wasn't a disaster. I mean, Eric Dyer had an absolute nightmare. Clement Longley didn't cover himself in any glory yesterday. Oliver Skip did okay, considering it was his first start since January, but it was a very difficult game to come into. I didn't understand that Conte played Skip right and Bentancur left. I guess it was probably the best position to ease Skip back in, but Emerson and Sanchez have distribution issues, and I think they would have helped having Bentancur close to them. Bentancur was one of the few Tottenham players to play well yesterday. We've given away a couple of absolutely stupid goals. We started okay, to be honest, Suj. We had some decent counter-attacking moments. It was too counter-attacking for my liking. But I felt whenever we did win the ball back, we really did give Newcastle concern and alarm in the first half hour. I mean, Sonny's chance where he goes through and he tries to dink it over Pope. I don't know if he thought he was offside. And I don't know if he was offside, by the way, because I haven't seen a replay back to show if he was on or off. But I know the flag didn't go up and it wasn't mentioned about whether he was on or off on the brief highlights I watched last night. I don't know if he thought he was offside and that's why he tried to finish that way, because he should just wrap that into the corner and put us ahead, and it's potentially a different game. Newcastle deserved to win the game, though. He deserved to win the game for a ruthless period at the end of the first half. 2 excellent finishes from Wilson and Almiron, which can be debated in terms of how we defended them, but I'd rather give them a little bit of credit. They started the second half ever so well, and then after the goal, they defended resolutely, and we didn't. A little bit like Arsenal didn't do enough to win at Southampton. We didn't do enough to cause them chaos. When we scored, that's what I said to my dad. I said, we need chaos now. And the chaos never arrived. And that was because Newcastle played very well defensively. A very strong unit. Very good side. They have, unlike the rest of the teams competing for top 4, so it might sound ridiculous because of the ownership and stuff, but they don't have the pressure. There's no pressure. There's pressure on Tottenham, there's pressure on Chelsea, pressure United, pressure Liverpool. Those 5 teams are going to compete for 2 spots, it looks like, unless Arsenal fall off, and I don't think they will at the moment, to be honest. Newcastle are in there at the moment. They're in there on merit. They've only lost 1 game this season. It's not an accident now. They finished very well the end of last season. I think we'd worked out, didn't we, Suj? They would have finished 6th on Eddie Howe's first 38 games in charge, and they've improved again. I've added people. People say, Tottenham miss Kulusevski and Richarlison. I've spoken about Kulusevski enough. Like, we need him back desperately. At the moment, we're just muddling on and pretty much hoping that Kane's going to get us goals, which he is capable of doing by himself. But they were also without Isak. They were without St. Maximin. Jonjo Shelvey came on as a late substitute. They've been missing all this season. So Newcastle have had players absent as well. So I can't be buying into listen, you lose certain players, it impacts the team, but I'm certainly not having it as an excuse. And I think we have to treat Newcastle very seriously. And we've got to say, we've joked about Miguel Almiron on this podcast for years. And I think we've rightly deserved to joke about him. Absolutely brilliant. He had a moment, obviously the goal he takes so well. He had another moment, he went down the flank in the first half, and it looked like someone had, when you put like fireworks on the bottom of roller skates?
Yep.
My God, was he going some. Like the clappers, his little legs going. Absolutely on top of his game. You can tell the confidence is completely flowing out of him. If anybody wants to go and buy Miguel Almiron, I'm not going to tell you no, honestly.
6 goals, 5 in the last 5.
He's got 5 in his last 5. He got 5 in the previous 61.
Wow. And
that's why we get reluctant with people like Almiron and Iwobi to tip them up and say they're decent assets. Iwobi's underlying numbers in terms of his creativity at the moment is actually pretty good. Almiron is scoring great goals. Now, Almiron, it might be one where you go, well, that's not sustainable that he keeps scoring these great goals. And whether you think the goal yesterday is great, you probably do from a Newcastle perspective. I obviously don't from a Tottenham perspective. But he's absolutely on form. I think if you do want to go into one of those midfielders at under 5.5, right now with Villa at home, Southampton away, and the next 2, I'd go him. So I think he's one. I'll give you a classic example of this would be, so we've spoken about maybe Jesus is at the moment a little bit underwhelming in front of goal. Maybe you can't get to Saka. Maybe you're looking at one where you think, actually, I want to go for an enabler here because it allows me something else, might get you up to Kane or whatever. I'd go Almiron over Xhaka at the moment. Although Xhaka's doing really, really well, I'd look at it this way and I think, if I get past Forest, do I want to look at him away to Chelsea and stuff? I just think Almiron's on fire at the moment. And it's 3 game weeks and you can get rid of him afterwards. If it goes to shit, you're not stuck with him forever. But he's doing really good. I thought Callum Wilson's hold-up play was great. Bruno Gomes, I told you before, every time I see him, I wish he was wearing a different colour shirt, mainly a white one normally. I didn't think it was at his best yesterday, actually, but does a really good job for Newcastle. What they did was they pressed, not quite in the same way that Manchester United did in the game last midweek, and they didn't do it to the same intensity, but they also did do it to structure. And one of the tactical ideas they had was, I think they worked out, Kane was drifting into left half space areas whenever Trippier went forward, and they stopped that. Trips sat off quite a bit more from that period onwards after Kane had a kind of a sort of 40, 50-yard run which forced Pope into a save in the first half, and they were happy to play diagonals, particularly Trippier looking for Joel Linton over the top of Emerson. Structurally very good, work rate absolutely phenomenal. And I don't often look at Newcastle and think you're not putting a shift in. In fact, I can't remember the last time I did think that. They're working very hard, completely behind the manager who's very astute. For Tottenham, there is an argument and a case to say we are being found out, which I'll speak about more on Tottenham. And I am going to do an analysis of Manchester United's pressing of Tottenham last week. So what's interesting is Tottenham want teams to press. I think we had a real period last season, we spoke about this when Brighton won at Tottenham, where Brighton didn't. So Brighton had this shield, actually, ironically, with Bissouma, which kind of sandwiched Kane between Dunk and Bissouma. And they just stopped the ball going into Kane and said, we'll deal with everything else in front of us. You're not passing the ball into Harry Kane. And if you beat us in a different way, you beat us in a different way. And we didn't have the quality on the day. And Brighton deserved to win. But in the March, April, May period last year, any team that came and pressed us got annihilated, got destroyed. We won some games very, very well and handsomely, often when we didn't even deserve to. Now, teams are strategically pressing in a way that is shutting down the problem. One of the big problems is the Kulusevski absence is absolutely huge at the moment. But I think, and this is where the frustration will come in with Antonio Conte at the moment, is you look at the decisiveness of Potter on Saturday and you question why Conte can't see the same thing and not making any changes at Old Trafford till 15 minutes to go. At half-time yesterday, I'm thinking, this is so obvious move to a back four. You're 2-0 down at home. There's nothing to lose. They're playing one up front. They're going to sit off a little bit deeper. If you feel you need to keep the three in midfield, keep the three in midfield. Go 4-3-3. But he won't do it. That's the obvious solution for Tottenham right now in this difficulty.
How did you feel when he brought on Davis and Doc that late in the game? Was it, because I've seen a lot of reaction is like, great, you're bringing on defenders for defenders. We're trying to win a game here. What are you doing?
But I think that's okay because Davis, in terms of if you can get him on the overlap from left-sided centre-back, his crossing's pretty decent. And obviously you were pushing Doherty ahead of Emerson, who's more likely to get you a goal. So I didn't have too much of a problem with either of those substitutions. There's not great options. You know, if people are sitting there screaming for Bryan Hill, you can sit there screaming for Bryan Hill. Bryan Hill's not going to do anything. He did change the system in the sense he basically played Lucas behind Kane and Son. But if you were going to do that, for me, just drop Kane in there. I've spoken about this to you, Suj. Play Kane in there and play two ahead of him because the team is hugely missing out on creativity at the moment. And I think Tottenham, through the whole management structure of the team, are realising that it was a huge error not to go and buy another creative attacking midfield player or a creative central midfield player. Bissouma started the game really well and then disappeared out of it badly. As I said, Bentancur played quite well. Skip did fine for a first game, but the creativity level there is not good enough. The only creativity in the team is Kane's. You've got to drop him in deeper. Got to drop him deeper and have two players either side who can run off. Sonny, with Kane, is not working. It's not working. He needs to come into spaces where he can come and attack people. The one thing you're losing, one of his brilliant works is obviously his run from out to in. So it's not just about beating people on the touchline or facing people up one-on-one and getting his shots away. It's actually his movement off the ball, which looked so much better when we played Frankfurt in the Champions League. And then obviously Richarlison's injury has forced this back in. And I understand why he's played 3-5-2 at the moment. I really, really do. But I think there is an annoyance growing that there is a lack of flexibility with Tottenham at the moment. I don't have huge concerns about us. I think I have concerns about us when we play against other good teams. I would still expect us to go and get a result at Bournemouth at the weekend, but we are honestly just muddling through right now, and the only Tottenham player that you should be considering for your FPL teams is Harry Kane. On the wing-backs, who starts at Bournemouth? Well, I'll tell you my opinion after Wednesday night, but if you ask me to say right now who starts at Bournemouth, I think left wing-back is very, very difficult to say. Right now, I would guess that Doherty will start at Bournemouth because I think that Emerson will play the 2 Champions League games.
Okay. We shall see. When are you on in Champions League? Wednesday? Away, right? Home?
Home.
Right, okay. So Wednesday, the turnaround is Wednesday to Saturday because you're 3 o'clock Saturday.
And then we've got Marseille Tuesday.
Right. Cool. What have we got this week content-wise, James? Because I'm looking at some of the Twitter questions and we can have a chat about some of them in a second as well.
So the fan view tomorrow, obviously in light of Aston Villa getting rid of
slightly
Steven
better
Gerrard.
mood than you might have expected.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll speak about with Lee Jackson on the fan view about Gerrard's tenure at Villa, what Villa expects going forward, if mistakes have been made at the top end of the club, what he thinks of the playing personnel. We may even talk a little bit of FPL, but I don't suppose even in spite of the result of the weekend, I don't think you're rushing into Aston Villa assets. You might be keeping hold of them at the moment, but we will touch on it, no doubt. Wednesday, Sky Fantasy Football. And yes, there was some passing tears for Brighton players at Manchester City on Saturday, Suj. Thursday's clash to correspondences, Brentford versus Wolves, as said, with Tom Med, Bradley Parker. I'll be doing an Ask James stream on Friday. Our Patreon podcast this week include a Q&A today, Champions League Fantasy tomorrow, Wednesday is Tottenham, quiz on Thursday. The theme is European capitals, Suj. And cool. On Friday will be our Game Week 14 preview show.
Nice. Sky Fantasy Football was a funny one.
Good week or not?
Average week, I would say. Just treading water. But
basically, ask me after tonight, yeah?
Life is... I'm buying Xhaka today, and I've got Bowen as well, so probably. But
1-0 Bournemouth.
You know your life is shit when you start looking at the number of passes a player's made and the number of tackles the player's made in a game. Like I bought Kieran Trippier yesterday, and 10 minutes to go.
Did he just miss out, did he?
No, he got tackle tier. He was 5 passes short of passing tier.
Nothing, he didn't hit it,
55.
Did he? Yeah, I bet.
He hit, but he did hit tackle tier. But it's like it's just not me to want to give a shit how many tackles or passes a player's made in the game. But Trips yesterday, he was potentially up for 2 tiers, like passing and tackle, and that was pretty decent, I thought, against Spurs. So, yeah, Sky. That's one for Wednesday if you're a Sky Fantasy Football player. And even if you're not, because you might be interested in starting to play Sky, and it's a lot of fun. We'll get to a Sky question in a second, James, which is not actually a Sky question, but kind of sort of relevant. But first, let's get into FPL Tractor's question. Halloween, what's your take?
An American thing.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of...
Which I'm not against, but that's fine.
American traditions that creep in over here, I'm not always the biggest fan of.
I don't feel like it's crept in, though, because I feel like it was a thing when I was a kid, so
yeah,
it's
but
not
then,
like a new thing.
But it's always... Halloween here is spooky and horror. Halloween fancy dress in America is just fancy dress. You wear whatever you want to because it's just fancy dress. It's really evolved a lot more over there. But I reckon there's going to come a time where...
We always just copy whatever's happening in America, don't we?
Yeah. How many years do you think before we see a lot of people doing Thanksgiving lunches or dinner or whatever Thanksgiving is in November here? I think it's becoming more and more of a thing slowly and surely. Really? I think 20 years from now, you'll see loads of Thanksgiving-related stuff. Yeah.
Whatever, if that's what people want to do.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it. Don't knock on my door because I'm not answering it.
Nah,
that's an absolute given. What day's Halloween this week?
It's next week Monday.
Next week Monday.
31st.
I must make sure I get home early. Lock the doors. There's no Monday Night Football next week. So okay. I don't think.
No, there isn't. Amber Edmond, if you and Suj swap jobs for a month, how would you get on?
Suj would never life left.
Honestly, for a month you'd be fine.
Yeah,
I reckon a month.
Just delegate.
Right. Yeah.
Just delegate. Yeah.
I don't think I could do what you do for a month.
You partly do.
Yeah, partly, but it's the Forest versus Palace on a Tuesday night. I just couldn't be bothered to watch it. I would do it for a month. I think I'd be all right, but after that, I don't think I have the patience to watch the volume of football. I just can't. Yeah, don't have the patience for it.
So I'll do it for us, mate.
Yeah, exactly that. But I think for a month I'd be all right. But by the end of that month, I'd be like, all right.
By the time Villa's on a Friday night, you've had enough.
Enough is enough. Yeah. Benny Blanco.
By the way, we suffered all them Villa games. As soon as they come off the TV, they played well.
Benny Blanco wants to know who's worse, Spurs, his FPL team, or Team North. I think Benny's doing all right in FPL. I
have no idea how he's doing.
I've got a sneaky, he's like top 15k or something.
Is
Benny,
you're good man if he is.
Yeah, I think he's doing all right. And Spurs, to be fair, you're still third in the table. So it's got to be Team North, really, isn't it?
This is the other... I mean, we've dipped below... I'll speak about it more on our Tottenham show on Wednesday. And we've dipped below the holy 2 point per game, where as long as we're at that or above, then I'm always happy. But yeah, it almost feels like we're in crisis and we're third, which is interesting. So big 3 games for us to come. If we can win the Bournemouth and Leeds games, which obviously hope that we do, and if we can avoid defeat against Liverpool, that puts us into the break on 2 points per game, and I'd take
that. Raquel Rhythm says, "What's your favourite cheese?"
I'm not a cheese connoisseur. I got to be honest, so I'm going to leave that to you, Suj.
I can't pick one. I don't think it'd be quite difficult to, because they're all quite different. Like camembert, gooey camembert when you're dipping the bread in. You into that?
Whatever. That's
decent. Grilled halloumi.
I wouldn't even know what cheese they put on my pizza.
That'd be mozzarella generally.
Probably.
But yeah, halloumi grilled.
Someone's
can't go wrong. I was going to say some mozzarella, burrata mozzarella, lovely, nice and milky and creamy. I'd have a piece of that all day long. I bought some chili cheese the other day from the supermarket. That was decent. It's hard to pick a favourite cheese. I'm going to go with mozzarella just because it goes on pizzas.
Yeah, fine, great.
That's as good as it gets. I'll have most cheeses, I think. I'm not into goat's cheese or anything that stinks too bad. But,
blue cheese. In your own time.
I was just looking at Kinder Bueno here. FPL Stomach talking about Bueno with another 90 minutes. Nice shout. I went for him on wildcard. They conceded 4 though. So that must be a 0-pointer, surely.
Yeah, I don't know how much you're going to use him, but fine.
This question comes in from Shane Brebner. With the chopping and changing proving disastrous, is it better to play the patience game? Which I can understand where the question's coming from. The reason I thought about this and then thought about Sky is because obviously you have a fixed amount of transfers. And I was looking at my Sky season now. We're 12 weeks in or 13 weeks in. And I've made 4 transfers all season. Only 4 all season. And my rank is 4K. So people that don't play Sky, it's reasonable for the number of transfers I've used.
It's very good. Suj.
Yeah. So... But I've only made 4.
Our patrons think that you're going to win £50,000.
Nah, but I'll take the 5 for coming second or whatever it is. But 4 transfers all season versus in FPL I've made 12 now. And you're forced to make 1 a week because of they don't carry on and roll. So I don't know. I'm going to actually, before this week's Sky, I was going to do it anyway, is look back and just see what were the 4 transfers I've made, like who to who so far. I know Kane to Salah was 1, and that's worked out okay over 3 games, for example. But yeah, I think there is an argument sometimes to be patient with certain players, like a Maddison, for example, people that held on through the suspension. He's done really well.
Well, I think Maddison became a sell because I'd have captained him last week, as you know.
Midweek, yeah.
It would have always probably been my plan that he would have gone. In all honesty, I think I probably would have ended up selling him rather than Zohore, actually, ironically, this week, if I'd have still held, maybe. Because I'd have known, right, it's Man City next week, so I want to come off a week early, potentially, anyway. So, yeah, look, I think Salah's the great example at the moment, isn't it, in terms of patience. But, I can't be patient anymore. Yeah, okay, but just take a step back and... You don't have to captain him this week. Oh, he's not worth the value. It's something I often say, right? What do I want with a player who's 12.7 million or 12.8, whatever he is? What do I want with this player if I'm not going to captain him? Well, I brought him in to captain him, and there's not long enough to go for me to justify reshaping the structure of my squad. So he stays. It's Leeds at home this weekend. He's still one of the best options. Would I go and buy him new at this stage? Like, would I move from KDB to Salah this weekend? No. I wouldn't. I don't suppose many people are buying Mo Salah this week. But before you bomb him out out of frustration, I'd think twice about it. Even if you make that decision based on Leeds rather than Mo Salah.
Karen's asked a question, and he says, 4th time of asking, and he tagged me, so I'm going to ask it. But the reason I haven't asked it previously is because I think I already know the answer to this.
Go on in.
James.
It's better be good if it's been asked 4 times.
What would you enjoy more? Arsenal playing brilliantly all season and then losing out to Man City on goal difference or like 1 point for the title.
That'll do.
Or Spurs finishing 8th, but winning the Champions League.
What sort of a question is that?
Exactly. So I would have said option 2 all day long without even any debate.
I will take 17th and win the Champions League.
Yeah. That's probably why I hadn't
Because if
asked
my
it previously.
team wins the Champions League, our league position is irrelevant as long as it's not in the bottom 3.
I think that's why I didn't ask it previously, James. I'm like, well, there's a trophy in here. Like, you're going to take that every time. If the options are, and one of them includes Spurs winning a trophy, you're going to take the trophy every single time.
The choice of my options are Tottenham win the Champions League or Arsenal missing out narrowly on the league.
You can't. No football fan should take more pleasure from someone else's pain than their own success. You can't get more pleasure from someone else losing than you winning.
Oh, plenty of people are like that.
Of course.
Plenty of people are like that.
But you shouldn't.
Don't misunderstand that I really dislike Woolwich, right? But it's far more important to me what happens with my team. If you said to me right now, Arsenal are going to win the Premier League and Tottenham are going to win the Champions League, thank you very much. Where do I sign? Honestly.
Matt, what was the last board game you played? And what is your favourite board game of all time? Are you going to say Sabutio because it's played on a kind of.
We used to have
Subbuteo was shit, by the way.
True story, right? So back at my mum and dad's, when I still lived there in Hornsey, we used to have this. My mum ironed it and stapled it to this massive bit of wood.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah? We used to set it out in the garden. I used to have all the teams. And very, very true, a bird shout on Eric Cantona. Which I can't remember was before the Cantona speech after he kung fu kicked the fan at Crystal Palace, or I can't remember if it was before or after, but that is legitimately true. I used to paint the numbers on the back and everything. Yeah. You couldn't do the letters. That was way too difficult. You needed a pro for that. Last board game I played. Yikes. Me and Mrs. like a bit of Articulate. Tends to come out around Christmas or something.
I like Articulate. I'm good at Articulate because I know a lot of words. So I'm pretty all right with that.
Yeah, like that place in Japan.
Kawasaki, Nagasaki.
That's the one, yeah.
Articulate. Risk is the one that I played most recently. I think we're going to play it again. I think one of the people in the office was trying to organise a once a month or kind of every few weeks games night. And Risk and Articulate are the first two between now and the end of the year. But Risk is wicked. You never played Risk?
I think so.
This war game conquering the world. It's the one. It's really good. Nico, do you know what Subbuteo is?
Shut up.
I didn't think he would,
Don't know what Subbuteo is?
Subbuteo. You know what? I didn't think Nico would know Subbuteo. You used to get these like little character players that were on like a half sphere and you'd have to flick them with your finger and kick the ball to score goals.
You must though, but you've probably got a different name for it.
Subbuteo. Post episode.
Google it. I bet you'll go, yeah, you
go
do
to
know.
YouTube and find Subbuteo.
You've probably got a different name for it.
When we were playing Subbuteo, Nico probably wasn't born though.
Yeah, that's true.
Like 9, 10, 11. He wasn't born when we were 9, 10, that's 11.
True.
So.
They still have like world championships for it and things like that.
Do they?
Yeah. Big deal.
Subbuteo. There we go. That's a wrap with board games and all of that kind of stuff as well. You've had a rundown of the content that we've got coming at you this week. If you are going to the London Stadium tonight for West Ham, head over to the Rib Man at 6 o'clock because that's where I'm going for a rib roll and pint before the game.
Have fun. You're going to get a train this time?
Yeah.
Good.
Both my brothers are in London today. Being that it's Diwali. So if you're one of the listeners in India, because there's loads of listeners that we have in India, all you're celebrating, Happy Diwali and all that jazz.
Happy Diwali.
So we're going to celebrate by eating pork ribs, I actually do, and having a couple of pints. But I don't think, this is mad, I'm trying to figure out the last time that I saw both my brothers at the same time. And I think it's been well over a year.
Do they look alike?
Nah, not particularly. Rib Man, he's down at the lot, Hackney Wick Station. I'll see you all down there from 6 if you are going to the game.
Go on, Bournemouth.
That, we'll be back tomorrow.
Go on the Dom.
We'll give them as many away tickets as they have in their whole stadium, probably. No, not quite.
Yes, thank you.
James needs a ticket.
I need a ticket for Saturday because despite the fact my team is shit and bore most of you to tears, I have the bug. I will pay over the top money for tickets at Bournemouth on Saturday. Please let me know. If I get all the tickets, I may need a childminder.
Listeners, thank you so much for all of your support. If you do want to support the show, you can head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL. And there's loads of kind of prize leagues, Slack channel, and additional content available for you over there as well. Other than that, though, stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Play it your way. Cue music, please, man. Sharp.